Hey, what's up everyone? Thank you for joining me here on this video where I'm going to talk about JSON and Python and how to parse JSON information using a Python script. And I think this is going to be really useful for you if you are studying for the Cisco DevNet certification, where one of the objectives will be understanding how to parse JSON information. And I'm going back and looking over through these objectives since I passed the DevNet associate back in February 2020. And I wanted to go back to fully understand what I'm really looking at, because sometimes when you go through this information, you tend to forget what you just learned. And so you got to keep at it, keep using try to build some Python scripts to learn more. So what I've got here is a few things. So I'll share my screen. What I'm using is Postman, which is an application that you could use to interface with APIs. And I've got Atom open, which we are going to make our script based on some queries with the API. So what I'm going to do is use the Meraki sandbox to make some queries, to make some calls, some GET requests in order to generate some data. So if for those of you who don't know what Postman is, go download it. Just do a Google search for Postman API and you'll find the application to download. But with this, I'm able to build an environment here, which I call just a Meraki sandbox. And I put in some variables in here to query the Meraki API. Now this here where I have this Meraki API key, this is something off of their sandbox. So we are, I guess, dealing with only a read-only environment. But with this, I'm able to import a Meraki dashboard API collection, and I can do things such as query the organizations that this API has access to. So here I've imported this collection, which I also got off of Meraki's website. And so with the information I populated in that environment, I select Get Organizations. And so this opens up here in the middle tab where you can see this GET request that's going to make a call out to this URL, https://meraki.com/API/v0/organizations. So we're going to query or get the list of organizations I have access to with this API. So what I want to do here is hit send. And bear with me as we're going to build something here with a Python script. So we're interfacing with an API, the Meraki API specifically, and it's spewed out a list of organizations I have access to. And so as you can see in this box here, we're dealing with JSON. All right, and it's in a pretty format. If we wanted to see the raw format, just kind of looks like that, a little bit harder to read, but just click on pretty, and then there you go. We've got 2 organizations you have access to. Now, when building out a Python script, it's actually fairly easy to do so with Postman, because over here on the right side, you just click code, and then you can actually select different languages here, but I'm going to use this Python requests code snippet, and it's generated the code for Python using the requests module or the request library. And so I'm just going to copy this. All right. And that's all I'm going to do with, or that's all I'm going to use Postman for, is to get this code as a starter. So now I'm going to jump into Atom, and I already have a file going called JSON-demo.py for Python. And so I pasted the file here. We're going to import the request module. Here's the URL where we're going to do our GET request to. And so this URL is just stored into this variable URL. Payload is going to be empty right now. There's nothing contained in there, but we are going to pass headers, which contains the Cisco Meraki API key. And that's going to be unique to you. In this demo here, I'm just using the Sandbox API. But if you have an account with Meraki, you should be able to get your own API key that you can keep to yourself. And that's what you have access to, depending on your access to different organizations or to an organization that you have access to. And what we're going to do, or what we see here, is this variable response is going to contain the output of this request. So here we're using the request library. It's making a request. It's a GET request. It's going to pass the URL for the organizations. It's going to pass the headers, and the data is the payload, but there really is no payload. And then what we're going to do is print out this response here as response.text.encode. So what I want to do is just see what that looks like. So I'll hit save. And then what I'll do is I'll open terminal, which I have the file here. So once I've saved the file, I'm actually running in a virtual environment, which I've already installed the requests module. And you could do that with just pip3 install requests, and that would install that for you. But since I already have it, I'm not going to do that here. What I want to do is run this file. So I'll use Python 3, and I'll do it against the JSON JSON-demo.py file. So if we run that, it'll print out the output, which looks like this, right? So what we have here is an encoded, it's UTF-8 encoding, because we can see here, that's what we're printing out. That's the output in that print. So what do we do with that? How do we parse this? Because if you look at this information, it is similar to what we saw in Postman. It's not quite in JSON format yet, but what I want to do is go back to the script here, and maybe we do something with this file. So let's say we import the JSON module, because to work with JSON, we have to import that library from Python in order to use it. And so then we take this response, where I'm going to scratch this, and the first thing we want to do is take this response, and let's just call it organizations. Should I use that? Sure. And then we will say, okay, that's our variable, organizations. And what I want to do is take this response with the JSON module, and we'll load the string. I know you want to call it loads, but it's just load string, and we'll pass the response there as a text. And I think we should be able to get something here if we print organizations. So we'll save that file, go back to our terminal window here, and I'll clear this and rerun it. Let's see if it works. If I remember correctly, that's how it works. I had to look it up. Yeah, there we go. We got our JSON output here, right? And I can even show this to you, because if we wanted to see what organizations, what it is actually, we can do a print and then type and include organizations in there. It's going to tell us what type of variable or what kind of data is held there. And so if we do that, it's a list. So what we've done effectively here is we got a response from the Meraki API, and we put that response into this variable response. Then I'm going to pass that response into a JSON library, and it's I think deserializing it and converting the JSON object, which is contained in response, and it's converting it into Python objects. And in this case, it has converted it into a list. And the reason why we want to do that is so we can iterate through that list in order to get the information we want. So if we remember up here, when I just printed organizations, this right here, when I printed this variable out, we got this list, which is in a JSON format. And the most useful thing we want to get out of here, right, is we want to parse this information. And I want to know which organizations I have access to with this API. And this is where for loops are handy. So we're back here at this file, the Python file. I'll erase that print statement. And I want to do a for loop. So we'll do for org in organizations. and we're just going to iterate through each item in this list here. So I'm going to say each org in this list of organizations. We want to, let me see if I can remember, because I'm still going through this practicing of using Python and scripting. So I got to remember what I want to print or what I want to do in this for loop. So I want to print out org, right? Maybe we'll just print out org. Would that work? So I save the file. I'm going to head back over here to my iTerm. Does it work? It does, but it prints out now two lists, right? We got one here and one here. So what do we want to do with this? Because I didn't want all this other information. I just want the organization name. So because we are iterating through a list, maybe we just call out the name. And so if you understand how lists work and how to get items in the list, we can then say org and then call in name. And where I've got this from, so org, a square bracket, and name in quotes there. Name is right here, and I want to get the name of the organization. So let's see if that works. I'll save the file, head back to iTerm. And there you go. So that is the easy way to just kind of iterate through using Meraki API and the output, which was provided in JSON. Use the JSON library here in the Python script and also the requests library. Make that request, your get request. The response is given back to you in JSON. We use the JSON library to load the string and convert the JSON into Python objects, which is a list, and that gets stored in organizations. Then we iterate through that list, which is organizations. And for each org in the organizations, I want to print the name of each organization. And that has given us the output that we wanted right here, which is Meraki Launchpad and DevNet Sandbox. And you can see that here, there's only two. Looking at the output from the list, but I was able to get that information. So there you go. That's pretty much it. So that's the full script. I will put a link down in the description so you can just see what the code looks like. Try it out for yourself. Go and download Postman, get Atom for your computer so you can start writing some scripts out, and import these two modules to get started, just to play around with organizations. You can even look at different networks. So let's take a look at another one, right? So let's say I want to look at what network in an organization I have access to. So I'm looking at Postman again. And now this time I'm listing out the networks in an organization, and it's just picking up an organization ID, which is, you can see as I hover over it, what it is currently set to. That's the organization ID 549236, right? Which we could get from here. It's this one, DevNet Sandbox. And we could have iterated through that as well with this script here. Let me just see if we can do that. All right. So if we wanted to do, for example, org ID, and then that, comma, org, bracket. Let me get these brackets going. And I believe its ID is what it was. If we go back to the terminal window, you can see ID is a key right there. You got a key value. And so we will do key. And then from here, what we want to do is I want to add this to the same line. So I'm going to say org name. Oh, let's see if that works. Let me see if I have the syntax right here. So I've got an error here where it says key error key. It doesn't like that for each org key. So maybe I do it that way. I'm going to remove that comma. Got it all wrong. Let me fix this. So I think you guys should have told me that I was typing this in wrong. Why am I typing in key? It should be ID. And then we'll add this comma back in there because key doesn't exist. And so if we go back, run this script, there you go. So what I've done is the output is org ID. It shows you the org ID number, and then it tabs and does org name and gives you the organization name. And that's what I've written here in one print statement, org ID in quotes, comma, org, and then the brackets, ID with the plus symbol. Then in quotes, I tab in and do org name, and then comma, org, and in brackets and quotes, name. So that's the easy way to do organizations. So what if we want to now look at networks? So let's just do a second example here. So I'm back in Postman, and I'm doing a list of networks here, and it's already selecting an org ID, which I have populated in my Postman environment for the Meraki sandbox. So I'll hit send. Hopefully it gives us a response, which it does. There's quite a few networks here. And then we could actually just do code again if we want to, and copy this code here and bring it into Python. And so what I'll do here is print this, and we could actually reuse some of this code. And so you could see where you can start getting, start seeing things that look familiar and start to build out maybe functions, which I will talk about in a future video because it's taken me a while to understand functions. But if we comment this out, all right, so I'm going to comment this out because I don't want to use it yet, but we'll save this file and then we will run it again in iTerm. So we'll clear that. We should get a list of all the networks in a list, but it's in an encoded, this encode format, UTF-8. But what I really want to do is pass that into another variable. And so we'll call it networks, and we will do, again, JSON.loadString and take that response text format. And so if we do print type networks like this, we should be able to see what type of network that is, or what type of network, but what type of data is stored there. And it is JSON not defined. You know why? Because I didn't import JSON in the beginning. So it's one thing I always forget, which is at the top, it didn't know what to do with this because I didn't import the right library. And so if we save that, go back into here, run that script again, and it is a list again, right? And so this is this line here will again convert the JSON data into Python objects, which is a list. And so now we could actually just do print networks, and you could see the full output of this here. Quite a lot, right? Hard to read. And so this is why you want to parse through this information. And so if we were just to reuse what we had here and say for network in networks, if I could spell, and what do I want to take out of this, right? Maybe you just want to keep it simple and just give me the network name. Yeah, so we just want the name, right? Something simple. We can do network name. And so does that provide us with a list of all the networks that we have access to with this API key? And there's all the networks plus everything else that I didn't want. This print network statement was still there, so it actually went through that. I will save this again and get a cleaner output. There it is. So there's all the list of networks that we have access to with this API key, all the different ones. And you can get a lot more creative with this script, as now you know how to parse through JSON by converting that JSON output to a Python object, in this case a list, and then iterating through that list with a loop statement. In this case I used a for loop, and then called out specific keys to get those values. So I want to thank you for watching this video. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. What do you guys think about JSON and the Meraki API? Is this something that has you thinking about different ideas of what you could do with Python and scripting? Let me know down below. Thanks, guys.